Here we are with episode 96 of The Horror Guys. I'm Kevin.
I'm Brian.
And we're here to talk about some horror movies that we saw this week.
As usual, we got 4 of them. Got old movies,
Spoiler
new
alerts.
movies,
Spoiler
good
alerts.
movies,
There might be some.
and terrible movies.
Do we have all 4 this week? So one of each?
No, these are all reasonably good.
Yeah, these were this week, yeah.
I'd say 3 good ones and a meh one. All right, well, this week we're going to be looking at...
The Lodge from 2019.
That's our newest one, yes, The Lodge.
And the oldest is Crescendo from 1970.
Yeah.
In between there is Wakewood from 2009? 2011. No, IMDb. We have a conflict of information. Your source said 2011. IMDb says 2009.
I'll go with 2009 then.
They seem pretty reliable. And Dracula Untold from 2014.
Yeah. I think it was released in Ireland in 2009.
Right.
11 over here.
Yep. A lag.
They're both right.
That's where that came from.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah. Is there any kind of books we'd like to talk about today?
Well, you have some shock theater books and some Hammer books. And...
Shock theater.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys remember the original monsters. 1931's Dracula, 1931 Frankenstein, 1943 Wolfman, 1954 Creature from the Black Lagoon. All these guys are from Universal, and all their various films, including their monster mashups, the monster meetups from the 40s, are also all Universals. So we've got a book on the Universal Shock Theater films. And amazingly enough, it's called The Horror Guys Guide to Shock Theater. Also, not to be underdone, the Horror Guys Guide to Son of Shock. Because shock alone wasn't enough. There's a Son of Shock.
They brought it back.
Or if you prefer your horrors in color, we've got the Horror Guys Guide to Hammer Horror. And it's the biggest of the bunch. And they're all fantastic, of course, because I wrote them.
a little bit biased.
A little modesty there,
A little bit, yeah.
But yeah, they are going pretty good, and they're getting good reviews. So yeah, stop on horrorguys.com/books and pick up one or more today. Ebooks and or paperbacks. But now we've got an oldie movie. Not quite as old as those Universal films, but
it wasn't
up there.
But it, an oldish,
50 years.
1970.
Yeah, that's 50 years ago.
Is
wow.
it old enough to call it a classic? Yeah.
At 50 years, yeah. Cars are classic much. I don't know, what is the rule with cars? Not that old.
Oh, I don't know. To be an antique car, there is rules, though.
Yeah.
A historic vehicle has to be so many years before they can get the official historic vehicle plate. At least in Michigan.
I'm saying Crescendo is in black and white, and all the main stars are dead, so it's a classic.
Okay.
Released in 1970, directed by Alan Gibson, written by Jimmy Sangster and Alfred Shaughnessy, stars Stephanie Powers, she's not dead, is she?
Stephanie Powers? No. No, she's not.
I think so.
No.
James Olsen, who is pretty much dead, and Margaretta Scott, who is also pretty much dead.
Stephanie Powers is born in 1942 and apparently 78. Still alive.
Okay, that's
still alive and kicking.
Super ancient. Not all, yeah. Still alive. Runtime, 1 hour, 38 minutes. Link in the show notes to pick up a copy at Amazon.
And you alluded to James Olsen being also passed?
He's not?
He's 90.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, he was obviously older. I just assumed.
No, you assumed correctly. Incorrectly.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
All right, well, what about Margaretta Scott, since you got it right there in front of you?
I'll bring up
She was the mother. She's got to be.
She died at 93 in the year 2005.
All right, there's one for 3.
Well, she was older than the others at the time, so yeah.
I figured Stephanie Powers was alive, but I thought James Olsen was long. He hasn't done anything in several decades that I've seen.
Well, let's bring.
He
up
used to be everywhere.
His list of stuff. Oh, he's got a ton of stuff.
Oh yeah. He was in everything in the 80s and 70s.
Only 94 acting credits though.
Murder She Wrote.
His last thing was an episode of Murder She Wrote.
Yeah.
30 years ago.
And you say he's 90, so he quit at 60. Yeah, that's a good time to retire.
That's respectable.
All right. So, did you like this film?
Kinda.
Kinda, yeah.
It was okay.
Yeah.
It was all right.
I'm not disappointed that we watched it, but I have a hard time actually recommending it.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's...
it was okay.
Yeah. It feels like made for TV, but I don't think it was.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, George and a woman are making out on the beach. Of course, it's all black and white. George sees himself come up with a shotgun and kill the woman. He then wakes up. It was just a dream.
Or
Credits.
was it?
Roll. Or was it? Yes. A driver brings Susan up the mountain to the house in an isolated French countryside. Danielle Ryman welcomes her and shows her around. Susan is here to do research on Danielle's dead husband, a famous composer. Susan's trunk of clothing wasn't delivered, so she has to borrow clothes from Danielle and Lillian the maid. It's obvious that Lillian isn't thrilled about Susan being there, but she doesn't explain herself. Danielle introduces Susan to her son George, who is in a wheelchair. 6 years ago, George had an accident. Susan points out that she has no family and no attachments. No one even knows she's here.
What could go wrong?
Well, first of all, if you're going to be in a horror movie, always tell people where you're going.
Definitely.
Never tell people you have no family or attachments.
And nobody knows you're there.
And she's going to do this biography on the dead musician whose giant picture is up on the wall. And already we got a theory on this. What do you think?
Our theory was incorrect.
It was.
But it was a good theory.
Not really. Turned out wrong.
Yeah, that the composer wasn't actually dead.
Yeah, because you look up there and the painting of the father looks just like James Olsen, who is the guy in the wheelchair.
And there was a spoiler ahead of time that James Olsen is playing a double role in this. We already knew that going into it. It gives that away in the credits, and we were thinking, oh,
he's been de-aged,
got some kind of youth serum or something, or drinking the blood of young people and staying alive longer. Or something, something's going on, but. No.
Well, as Kevin said, that was wrong.
Yeah.
It seemed like a good plot, though. It might have been more interesting than what we got.
It might have been.
Well, then we see Danielle giving George an injection of something. Later, George makes a big deal out of massaging Susan's shoulder.
Easy for you
to say. Massaging Susan's shoulder. You say it 3 times.
No, I'm not even going to try.
He just might have a crush on her already. George has some kind of a seizure and calls for Lillian, who seems to delight in his suffering. Lillian says, "I'm the one you need. I'm the one who helps you." Clearly, she's got a thing for George that George doesn't reciprocate.
But he's in a wheelchair and can't really put up too much of a fight.
Yeah.
And he's dependent on those injections.
She shoots him up with what appears to be heroin. He dreams that he comes up out of the pool and makes out with Susan, but once again sees himself approach from somewhere else and shoot her.
What could be going on here?
Maybe he wants to be a serial killer. Carter, the butler, catches Lillian practicing being the mistress of the house. Carter laughs because it'll never happen. "You're a slut. You'll end up in the gutter from where you came." So they don't get along real well.
No, they don't.
Susan finds a photo of a girl in a photo album. Catherine left George right after the accident, and Susan does kind of look like her. George sees a necklace on Susan, and he's seen it in his dreams. Could they be coming true? So the woman he shoots in his dreams is wearing the same necklace Susan has.
What could this mean?
And you remember in the beginning when she arrived and all her clothes in her trunk never appeared?
Mm-hmm.
That don't mean a thing, because that never gets mentioned again.
Well, all the clothes and stuff she was wearing was
it was given to
leftovers,
her.
Yes.
But
stuff left behind.
Really, they made such a big deal out of her clothes not showing up, and
well, luckily she was Catherine on the mother's side, so just wear their clothes.
Well, Susan sneaks out and wanders the estate, listening to George play the piano. Danielle screams, "No, that's not right!" And a moment later, George screams in pain. Some kind of an abuse thing going on here, we think. Susan finds a broken wax figure of a girl, but when she gets Carter the butler, the dummy has vanished. George tries to talk Susan into leaving town. Lillian threatens to withhold George's heroin. The syringe gets broken and George has to do without. Shortly afterwards, Lillian makes a big show out of undressing and going swimming. We see the wheelchair roll away without George. Suddenly, Lily Ann is bleeding out in the pool and dies. Someone stabbed her. We didn't see George do it, but he was the only one around.
Prime suspect.
Well, especially when, how did he get out of the wheelchair?
Mm-hmm.
The next morning, George doesn't want Susan to leave. Lily Ann seems to have left town, and now George has changed his mind about keeping Susan around. Competition's gone.
Mm-hmm.
George and Susan are kind of dating now, allowing themselves to get closer together. George has another seizure. It's heroin withdrawal. This time he gets Susan to steal his medicine from his mother's room. Danielle silently watches her do it, and she seems pleased that it's happening. Danielle tells Susan that she should stay and take care of George. She could wind up as mistress of the house someday. In his drug-induced dream, George once again sees himself killing Susan with a shotgun. Then, the second George shoots the first in the back. Again, he keeps having this recurring dream.
Of two Georges.
One of which is a murderer.
Huh.
Susan tells George that she's falling in love with him. He tells her that she's crazy and will regret it. She goes to see George that night, and he can walk.
It's a miracle.
He calls her Catherine, and his hair looks different. He starts chasing her around the house, and then she finds the real George crawling around outside. Apparently, they are twin brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's the dual role.
Yep, it is.
Well, Carter comes in and pulls Jack off of her. They struggle, and Jack kills Carter. Danielle is encouraging the whole thing, telling Jack that Susan is really Catherine. George says that Jack killed Catherine, and Danielle blames George for Jack losing his mind and shooting Catherine and George 6 years ago. So, basically, George and Catherine were having an affair. Jack found out and shot them both. Killing Catherine and leaving George in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And going insane in the process.
Yeah.
Susan hides in the barn, but Jack breaks in. Susan finds a whole room full of dolls that look just like her.
Well, just like Catherine.
Well, yeah, same thing.
Just like, yeah, because they look so much alike.
With about half of them destroyed. It seems that Jack spends all day killing Catherines whenever he gets in the mood.
Yeah, his mom supplies them, and, yeah, anytime he gets in the mood, just go hack one up. Yeah.
Well, between the
you go have fun, dear.
The murder dolls for Jack and the heroin for George, she's quite a mother.
Yeah, she's quite the enabler.
Well, Danielle brings him life-size dolls, and he kills them as many times as he likes. He then grabs an axe and gets ready to kill Susan, but when Danielle comes in to stop him, Danielle ends up shooting Jack herself. Why? Don't know.
Yeah, that
changed her mind.
That's a little unclear. And
there's a lot going on with Danielle that makes no sense.
Yeah. What did she think was going to happen?
Yeah. Well, anyway, Susan leaves the house and runs across the countryside and gets away. The end. All right. Yeah, you've hit on it already, right there. What was the purpose of all this?
Yeah. What was the mom's What was she thinking, that they were going to get together and have beautiful babies? And because it was mentioned that the brother in the wheelchair couldn't perform. He had lost
not a good
that
singer?
ability.
Not a good singer?
Yes. No. Could not perform sexually. And so the brother was going to have to provide grandbabies to Danielle. But, did she just think Susan's going to go along with this without noticing? Or, I don't know. It's unclear.
Very unclear.
Yeah.
Well, there were lots and lots of scenes of Susan just roaming around in her nightgown with noisy piano music in the background. An hour in, it's all pretty standard drama with only one death, and the ending has a little bit of an action, but it's really a very talky film. Show don't tell? No, there's lots of telling. Well, Kevin and I were about 15 minutes in when we both thought that George was really the father who was using the drugs to maintain a younger appearance. We knew going in that James Olsen was playing a dual role, which spoiled us, but in the wrong way. We fully expected the deception to be revealed near the end, but that's not the way the story unfolds. And it might have been more interesting. It might have been more interesting than having a lunatic twin.
Mm-hmm.
The twin brother thing really came out of nowhere. There were no hints or suggestions that George had a brother. A lot doesn't make much sense here when you think about it at all.
And they like totally kept it secret that this famous, world famous composer had twin sons,
Yeah.
and the world did not know. And this girl Susan, who comes there, who's like, like the expert on this.
She's doing her doctoral
guy.
thesis on the guy. She must know something
knows
about
him in and out, supposedly, and his work and his life and his music. And nobody knew that there were twin sons, and they were adults. It would have been, not like it just happened.
I think the biggest one though is, what did Danielle expect to happen?
Yeah.
That suddenly Susan would be in love with Jack, or that when George was right there and still alive, was she supposed to be married to both of them?
And how was Danielle gonna, tame Jack enough to treat Susan like a person without killing her?
He's killed her 100 times, and every time, repeatedly he kills her, and he's not going to just stop and have sex with her. And the biggest question is about Lillian. Did she know about Jack? And how could she not know about him after living there for so long as their maid?
Yeah, I don't
At
get
no
it.
point did she ever mention him or allude to the guy in the back room. And she had to know. She was going to become the woman of the house. Which one of them? Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
overthink
hard.
this one. The acting was good. James Olsen was always good in everything he did.
Yeah.
But unsatisfying.
Yeah, the acting was generally fine, but the plot has some holes in it. Wow, speaking of having holes in it, there's Wakewood from 2011.
Wakewood. 2 words.
The name of the movie is Wake space Wood. 2 words.
But the name of the town is Wakewood. 1 word.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about. And this is from 2009 or 2011, however you want to do it. And it's a Hammer film, one of the Hammer revival films.
Hammer time.
Directed by David Keating, written by Brendan McCarthy, and stars Aidan Gillen. Oh, it's, what's his name? What was he in Game of Thrones? Man, I put that whole series out of my mind.
So
Littlefinger,
yes.
This would have been before Littlefinger.
Pre-Littlefinger.
Yeah. Also, Eva Birthwhistle and Timothy Spall. And Timothy Spall, I will watch him read the phone book. He's good in everything.
He is, yeah. He's done a ton of stuff. Yeah.
He doesn't even have to try to be creepy. He can be playing like a good guy and still be creepy.
Yes, he can.
Hour and 30 minutes. Link in the show notes if you want to pick this one up. And I don't think this was a very big commercial hit. I never heard much about this one. You?
No,
Yeah.
It was a subtle hit.
Under the radar.
Yeah. But I think it's one that deserves checking out.
Oh, yeah, I definitely did like it.
Yeah, definitely recommend it.
The ending especially leaves a lot to talk about. And we are going to have some spoilers here, more so than usual, because there's things to spoil.
You're warned.
Yeah, so you want to skip ahead to the next review or go watch this and then come back later. But yeah, this one, that we don't want to spoil it for you, but we're gonna. So, beep, spoiler warning.
So they moved to this little town, and there's a pet cemetery where, oh, wait, wrong one. Wrong movie.
Yeah.
But there's some similarities.
There's a lot of similarities.
Yeah, similarities between this and Pet Cemetery, the basic idea of, and, what happens when you bring a person back?
Somebody
and they
went
come
through
back
the
not right.
Pet Cemetery movie, made an outline of it, and changed the names and some details. And this is interesting. I liked it.
Well, normally they bring the people back. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself.
You are a little, yeah.
Yeah, but normally it's okay. But in this case, they did things wrong, and
even in Pet Cemetery, if you go back to the Native Americans way back in the day, it worked fine for them originally. Then something happened to it.
It got corrupted.
Yeah, it got sour or whatever.
Yeah,
but presumably it was put together for a reason like that, to bring back the dead.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, well, Patrick and Louise are happily married and have a daughter, Alice. Patrick is a veterinarian, and Alice loves hamsters, dogs, and all the animals. At least she did, until a German Shepherd mauled her when she let it out of the cage. They rush her to the hospital, but it's too late. She's dead. Credits roll.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you like the movies that don't have kids in it, you can't beat 2 minutes and then dead. All right.
Yeah, but it doesn't last.
All right, well, they want to get away from it all because they're all broke up after their lost child, so they move to the little town of Wakewood. Louise gets a job as a pharmacist, and Patrick starts working on farm animals. Good thing they both have easily mobile careers.
Yeah, very handy.
A woman and her niece come into Louise's drugstore for an inhaler, and their prescription is a year out of date. The girl hasn't been into the store in over a year.
And this is curious.
It's the only drugstore in town where she's getting her inhalers.
Yeah.
Well, Louise is still broken up about the loss of Alice, and she wants to leave Patrick. They're going to get a divorce. Enough of this stuff. It's break ties completely. So on the way out of town, he's going to stay, but he's going to drive her to the train station. Their car breaks down. They walk across a field and find a strange cemetery with odd gravestones. They find a farmhouse, and out back is a group of people having some kind of a ritual. Louise and Patrick see Arthur, the leader of the town, and he sees them seeing him. When they arrive home, they find Arthur waiting for them already.
Yeah, already in their house. Hi there.
And he says he's just checking in to make sure everything's all right with you both. And that's pretty much it. He leaves. It's creepy, but nothing more. It's not like he's giving them death threats or anything. He seems like a nice guy, maybe, but definitely on the creepy side. The next day, Louise sees the little girl again from the pharmacy, and she's shivering strangely. "I'm going home today," the girl explains. "I can't wait to go back." Later, she sees a procession leading the girl out of town. "Alice has a lovely voice," states the girl as she walks past.
That's their dead daughter.
The dead daughter, yeah, which nobody in this town would have ever met. The girl's aunt explains that there's something strange about Wakewood, and maybe Louise wants her daughter back. What?
What? Huh.
Well, at work, one of Patrick's friends, Mick O'Shea, could you get any more Irish than that?
That's an Irish name, all right.
Is killed by a huge cow that crushes him. And nobody says it's Patrick's fault, but it totally is.
Oh, it wasn't really.
Well,
it was the guy's fault for getting in the pen with the cow. And
he's not the smartest.
He was not following OSHA procedures.
It's Ireland. They don't have OSHA.
Yeah, I know.
They have O'Shea.
Oh.
Okay, well, they tell Arthur that they want him to leave town, and Arthur says he can bring Alice back to life for 3 days, as long as Alice has been dead for less than a year. So, if they've been dead for under a year, they can come back and visit for 3 days. Well, that way they can say goodbye properly and, wrap up all the loose ends.
And apparently that's what the asthma girl was about.
Yeah, she was on her break. Her break from death.
Yeah.
Patrick thinks it's all nonsense, but Louise believes in it. Patrick cryptically says to her, "If we have to lie, isn't it worth it?" And we wonder, lie about what?
And I immediately suspected, though.
Well, there's only one rule. They got to be dead for less than a year.
And at that point, I realized that he knew about this whole thing and set it up, and he was playing Louise.
You think they came to this town non-accidentally?
He knew
the car
about
didn't break down accidentally?
He knew about it.
Oh, I never caught on to that.
Oh, yeah, he was playing Louise, and, what, really? Well, if you want to, Louise, and
now I want to see it again.
Yeah, he was pulling the strings. And he knew darn well that it had to be a year, but he only heard about it somehow too late. But yeah, well, we'll just lie and
so
say
he was
it
doing
under
Littlefinger before Littlefinger.
He was being Littlefingery. Yeah.
Huh, no, I want to see it again now. Catch all this. Yeah, I didn't catch on to any of that.
Oh yeah.
Well, they tell Arthur they want to try it. "How long has your daughter been buried?" he asks, and Patrick says 11 months 2 weeks.
Liar.
Alice will be perfectly normal for 3 days, but she must stay within the limits of the town. They must also remain in the town forever. Well, they agreed to all this. The couple asks Mrs. O'Shea about the use of her husband's dead body for the ritual. "You don't know what you're asking," says Peggy. I can't do an Irish accent.
Yeah, it's okay. We understand.
Says Peggy O'Shea. They need some physical part of Alice, so they dig her up and break off one of her fingers. All right. So there's a scene of them digging up the cemetery at night. And this is the cemetery out in the real world. It's not in Wakewood.
Right.
So they had to go to town for that.
Yeah. So apparently they need a dead body as a template.
Yes.
Yeah, which is the ritual that they saw when the car broke down.
You can kind of see
see what's going on.
The person who's coming back sort of break out like an egg. They use the dead body as
like a husk,
cocoon or something.
Yeah.
All right, so Patrick and Louise do the ritual, which involves most of the town. They burn and then cut open Mr. O'Shea's corpse, and out pops Alice. They take her home, clean her up, and she looks perfectly normal. The next morning, everything is perfect, and everyone is happy. Alice is back, and they spend all day playing. They hit a dog with their car by accident, and Patrick takes the dog to his office to patch up. Arthur stops in and reminds him that they only have 3 days to say goodbye. Mrs. O'Shea comes around and offers Alice a ride on her pony. She's kind of suspicious about the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
She has some questions for Alice that she records on a system very similar to the one Arthur used with Patrick. It's this weird abacus-looking thing.
Yeah, but it does more than numbers.
Yeah, we don't really know what it is or how it works, and it's never really explained, but it's an interesting prop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Mrs. O'Shea explains, she isn't right. You need to take her back. And Alice walks past the city limit sign and starts bleeding excessively. You can't leave town. When they bring her back, she instantly heals. That night, some of the townspeople come to see them. You have to follow the rules. Patrick insists on his promised 3 days. Arthur knows something odd is going on. Something just isn't right this time. And she hasn't been too awful bad. She's just sort of creepy at this time.
Yeah, and she's kind of off.
Yeah. Well, the next morning, Patrick finds the dog that they kept overnight to heal, and the dog's been torn to pieces. Louise blames the villagers, but Patrick thinks it was Alice. Alice asks, "When is the baby coming?" And Louise gets a pregnancy test. Oh, there is a baby on the way.
She's pregnant again. Huh.
Well, it's time. See, she didn't think she could have children again, which is one of the reasons she was so broken up about Alice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now it's time for Alice to go back to the woods. Then Alice goes to Arthur's house and kills 2 men there, but leaves Arthur for later. Mrs. O'Shea is next. She gets stabbed through the neck and then hanged, because stabbing in the neck wasn't enough.
She makes sure.
Excessive kills.
She's a little demon girl.
Patrick is finding mutilated animals all over the place. Alice is getting her revenge. Well, the parents finally find Alice. "Am I dead?" she asks. He sticks her with a syringe full of animal euthanizing poison. They carry her through the woods. "I don't want to go back," she whispers to Patrick. Arthur then finds Patrick in the woods. The 2 parents turned out, he admits that they lied about how long Alice had been dead. It was more than a year. Alice is stalking her through the forest. Louise tricks Alice into crossing the town line, and she collapses. She then picks Alice up and carries her back across the line to where the villagers are waiting to complete the final ritual and burial.
The undo.
Louise is then pulled down into the grave as well. The grave eats them both up.
Oopsie.
Arthur prevents Patrick from helping her. He explains, "They're gone, Patrick. You won't find them. I tried to warn you that there would be consequences." But, yeah, he didn't say anything like that. He did say you'd never be able to leave town.
He said there'd be consequences if you screwed up, but yeah, that's pretty harsh.
Yeah. Well, Patrick then does the ritual to get Louise back for 3 days. Louise is quite a bit more pregnant at this stage. You gotta wonder, do people age in the afterlife? Because she wasn't showing when she died.
And she is now.
He's got all his surgery tools ready to go. It's clear that he's planning to remove the baby surgically. And earlier on, we saw him doing a cesarean on a cow, so we know he can do that.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a loophole. All right. Well, from the trailer, I was expecting Pet Sematary mixed with a little bit of The Wicker Man. And, yep, that was it.
Pretty much.
Even before starting the film, it was right. So it's a little isolated town in the UK countryside with a supernatural secret that involves raising people from the dead. Isn't that what all the little UK countryside towns do?
I think they do. They each have their own little thing.
Yeah, if you leave London and go to a little village, You better watch out. Mm-hmm. They are all screwed up.
They've got something going on.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, you talk about the rednecks in America. It's got nothing on the little UK villagers.
Uh-huh.
All right, well, the actual ritual shown here was really complex, interesting, very graphic, and more than a little bit gory. The whole story moves quickly. Alice is dead before the credits, and the town secret is revealed within the first half hour. Some of the deaths are pretty gory as well, and the ending scene was a nice little surprise. You just have to wonder what he was thinking and how that was all going to work out for him. And, of course, how does it work? Because she had gotten more pregnant since her death.
And assuming the baby was viable, too?
Was she going to have this baby in the afterlife and had a baby that was dead before it was born?
It brought her and the baby back alive?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the baby would stay alive? Or would the baby grow up to be a little killer, too?
Well, theoretically, you could bring the baby back, or bring people back 3 days each year? Or just once ever?
Just once ever.
All right. So It's not like he'd brought her back all the time.
Right. Yeah. Questions.
I have questions, yes. Yeah, I have lots of questions.
But overall, it was good, and you best not overthink it.
It was fun to watch, and there's plenty there you can overthink.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we've been talking about Hammer the last few weeks, and Hammer with the book, Hammer, Horror Guy's Guide to Hammer Horror, and their most recent film. Hammer's most recent one is called The Lodge. Came out just last year, 2019. Directed by Severin Fiala. Ooh, there's a name for you, Severin.
And this was more of a psychological drama, I thought, than horror. I mean, it's horror.
It's kind of both.
Yeah.
Directed by Severin Fiala and Veronica Franz. Written by Sergio Casci and Veronica Franz. Stars Riley Keough, Jaden Martell, and Leah McHugh. Hour and 48 minutes. Link in the show notes if you haven't seen this one. Did you like it?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I did too. But again, the more you think about it, the more it breaks down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't know what was happening.
I tried to stop thinking about this one afterwards because
Yeah.
it kept getting worse the more I thought about it.
Okay, and again, this is another spoiler warning. This one's got some spoilers to be spoiled. And I was, all throughout the film, I was trying to decide what was really going on. And the obvious thing, I was like, no, that couldn't be it, and it wasn't. And then it became something else that was obvious, and no, it wasn't. So this is one of those what's going on kind of films, and we're going to spoil it for you. So go watch The Lodge from 2019 and come back. We will wait. All
Okay,
right.
we're back. Have you seen it? Okay.
That was pretty messed up. All right. Well, Laura cries in the bathroom. She's not looking forward to what's coming. Aiden and Mia are her children, and they don't care for their father's new girlfriend, Grace, very much. Laura is taking the kids to be with her ex, Richard, and also Laura's going to be there too. Boo, hiss. Well, he wants to finalize the divorce so he can finally marry Grace. Laura goes home and kills herself rather than deal with it all. And this leaves the children a psychological mess to deal with. All right. So they didn't like Grace to begin with, and now they got to go live with him. Suicide.
New stepmom.
Yeah, 6 months pass, and Richard still plans to marry Grace. Why he hasn't by this point, we don't know. Richard wants Grace, Aiden, and Mia to go up to the mountains for Christmas, and he'll join them later. The kids do some research and find that Grace was the sole survivor of a suicide cult. Something very similar to Heaven's Gate, where they all ended up dead. And they drive up to the lodge in the mountains, and the kids finally get to meet Grace. 6 months after, I'm not sure how the timing works there. What did they do for the previous 6 months?
Well, they weren't just meeting her, were they?
Yeah, I don't think they knew her before. It's the first time.
Okay.
It's all very awkward. The kids then say grace before dinner, and Grace looks shocked. She may not totally be over her religious experience from her childhood. Grace falls through the ice and nearly dies, but at least Mia gets her doll back. Kids got their priorities. This is not a happy family. Yeah, Richard gets a call. He's going to have to go back to work for a few days, so he shows Grace how to use his gun. She's already a fantastic shot. Where did you learn to shoot like that, he asks.
In the cult.
I got to go back to work for 3 or 4 days. Here's the gun, just in case you need it.
Yeah, you and the kids have fun.
Yeah.
See ya.
Yeah. It is out in the woods, and I don't think it's not a bear shooting type of gun. So I don't know what they were thinking.
Self-defense.
As soon as Richard leaves, the kids start ignoring Grace. She eats alone and stares at the creepy painting in the dining room until she has to turn her back on it. And they spend a lot of time showing us that painting over and over. And yeah, I think the cameraman was as obsessed with it as Grace was.
It is quite a painting.
Well, Grace watches the children as they sleep in their bedrooms, but she has flashback to the bodies of the suicide cult. The next evening, Grace wakes up outside in the snow. No, it's just a nightmare. They all fall asleep, drinking hot chocolate and watching horror movies in front of the space heater. It's a comfy, cozy little scene. The next morning, they wake up and find that the power has gone out, the water pipes have frozen, and that they're completely snowed in. All the food in the fridge is gone, and so are the Christmas decorations. All their clothes are gone, the Christmas gifts are gone, even the dog is missing.
But most importantly...
Grace's medications and all the jackets are gone, so they can't even leave the house. It's very cold and snowy out.
And this is a person who really needs her medications.
Yeah, she does. Well, she starts hearing and seeing things that night. She dreams that the children are suicide cult victims. When the morning rolls around, she's standing in the children's bedroom, unmoving and unresponsive. Yeah, she really needs those meds. She packs some food, what little food is left, and sets off on foot toward the nearest town. She gets turned around out on the ice and ends up walking right back to the lodge. Aiden finds a photo of him and Mia that says, "In loving memory." He starts to think maybe they're all already dead. Why would everything in the house disappear? Why would the power be out? Why could they be so isolated? Could they be dead? Would they even know it if they had died? Not long after, Aiden shows Grace the obituaries for all 3 of them. Did they have internet? How did he get that?
Faked it. Computer.
Faked it. Yeah, well, no faking at this point.
With no computer, no electricity.
Yeah, how did he come up with that?
Best not overthink that.
Yeah. Aiden then hangs himself, but he can't die. He's standing there hanging in the noose, and he explains that they need to confess their sins before they can die, which was a pretty cool scene. He hung himself but would not die. They finally find the dog frozen stiff outside. We then see the kids open up a closet where all the stuff was hidden. They knew about it all the time. And Aiden admits that none of it was real.
They were just messing with the Grace.
Worked.
Yeah, sure did.
Yeah, don't mess with the crazy people. Aiden can't make the generator work, and all their phones really are dead by now.
Yeah, trying to undo it, and it's
not
too
easy
late
to undo.
Yeah.
It's also too late for Grace, who kneels in hot coals. Her full religious training from the suicide cult has come back to her. Yeah, she's got the crazy. She screams in pain from her self-inflicted burns all night, and the children have to listen. Their prank has gone way too far, and they know it. Meanwhile, down the mountain, Richard has been trying to call since yesterday, and he finally decides he'd better get back up there and see what's going on. Grace brings in a gun and corners both children. And we see Richard arrive and go inside looking for everyone. He goes up the stairs and Grace shoots him. Boom! Oh, no more Richard. Aiden and Mia then run away and take the car, but they're little kids, they can't drive, and get stuck right outside the front door. We then see all 4 of them, including dead Richard, sitting at the dinner table. Grace then duct tapes over their mouths, just like the suicide cult did, and then she picks up the gun. Fade to black, the end.
Well, that ended darkly, as your note says here.
That ended darkly,
it certainly did. Jeez.
Do not mess with the suicide cult survivor who's on their psycho meds. It's not a good recipe.
Yeah, when somebody really is schizophrenic and psychotic, don't take their meds away.
Yeah, and especially in an isolated place with guns and stuff. Well, the moral of the story seems to be don't trigger former suicide cult members, which is good advice. It's actually very good advice, right along with don't steal people's medication. Between scenes in the regular story, they have interspersed scenes from Mia's dollhouse, and it's a very detailed and realistic looking toy. There's lots of creepy footage just from the inside the dollhouse. The whole she's replacing your mother situation is a goldmine of tension and conflict, even without the other stuff thrown in. And there was a scene where they all sit around a propane heater, and things started to get weird right after. I was under the assumption that they had all died during the night from asphyxiation.
I think that's what the kids were trying to convince Grace of.
Yes,
Yeah.
because she even asked, is that safe?
Mm-hmm.
When Aiden started suggesting exactly that, I changed my suspicion so that maybe the father knew exactly what would happen to Grace in this case, and he had some unknown reason for wanting the children dead. Because it was starting to look like she might kill the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Richard was behind it. He wants to be a solo dad. Well, the truth that the children were behind it all still seems a little far-fetched that two kids of that age would come up with a plan this complex. And I still have trouble with that.
Yes, me too.
Where did he come up with that obituary that he showed her?
Printed
Like you
it.
said, he made
Would
it
have
up.
had to made it ahead of time.
Yeah, because they had no electricity or computers or printers. Yeah, he made it up ahead of time. It was part of the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were right. Yeah. Well, it was never boring. It moves quickly, and I was unsure what was going on and almost the entire time. The problem was, when it was over, I didn't really believe it. Could they have hidden or could they have flushed her meds down the toilet and moved on with that? Yes. But all the complex stuff like hiding the Christmas decorations, and I'm not quite sure whatever really did happen to the dog. I don't think they killed the dog on purpose, but maybe they did.
I don't know. Maybe it just got out. And,
Yeah. The dog seemed to have no real purpose there.
No, and they didn't seem to have broken up that it was dead or anything.
Well, she did. It was her dog. It wasn't the kid's dog.
Oh, right.
But anyway, yeah, it was good. I was entertained, but it doesn't make too much sense after the fact. All right, speaking of making sense after the fact, we all love Dracula. And what was the origin story of Dracula?
Prequel.
Prequel to Dracula
Uh-huh.
is Dracula's story, the untold story of Dracula, otherwise known as Dracula Untold from 2014. Directed by Gary Shore, written by Matt Sazama and Burke Sharpless, stars Luke Evans, Dominic Cooper, Sarah Gaden, 1 hour 32 minutes. What'd you think?
I thought it was great fun.
I liked it, yeah.
Really liked it a lot.
It didn't get great reviews. They never decided to go dark universe with it, even though they were supposed to. It's kind of an abandoned, ignored Universal stepchild type movie.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's only 6 years old. It's not that old.
But it was good.
I guess the
very
box
entertaining.
office wasn't great. But yeah, I liked it. You
Yes.
liked it.
Yeah, we liked it.
So we're told in the voiceover narration that there were a bunch of young boys who grew into warriors, and one was especially good. He became known as Vlad the Impaler, the future ruler of Transylvania. And this is about a 10-minute montage of
Violence.
violence. It was more like drawings of boys and drawings of soldiers and drawings of war, like a flip book kind of thing, not quite animated. I thought it went on a little too long and wasn't that interesting.
Oh, I did. I thought
There
it
was a
cool.
warrior. He grew up to Vlad the Impaler. Now, let's move on.
Yep.
So the human guy named Vlad warns that there may be a Turkish invasion soon. They find a cave, and it's full of bats. Something's in there that scared all the bats out. Could it be the Turks?
No.
No, it's not the Turks. It's some kind of angry, growling, demonic monster. It kills Vlad's men, and he only escapes by stepping into the sunlight. Just barely. Well, there's a monk who explains to Vlad later that the creature in the cave is called a vampire. He's a greedy man who was tricked by a demon's bargain and was cursed to live in the darkness forevermore. A vampire will remain alive until he finds another to set him free.
This vampire.
This vampire, yeah.
Yeah.
After talking to the priest, he goes back to his castle and his wife and young son. It's a happy family in what looks like a happy land. There's been happy peace in the happy land for 10 happy years.
Yay!
Happy!
With Vlad as the ruler.
It's like the Smurfs.
Mm-hmm. There's a reason he got the nickname the Impaler, though.
That's all over and done in the past.
But
They'll never do that
But
again.
that was then. He's a good guy now and has a family, and yeah.
He's on our side, so it's okay.
It's all happy now.
Well, the Sultan's man comes, and he wants their tribute. This is expected. This is normal. They've got the tribute. But he accuses Vlad's men of killing their scouting party, which Vlad denies. Well, they didn't. The vampire did it. The man also requires 10,000 boys to join his army. You know, that villager doesn't look like it's got 50 people in it. I don't know where they're getting the 10,000. It must be a lot of little villages in the mountains.
It was a lot of little, Uh-huh.
Well, Vlad doesn't want to do it, but his men recommend going along with it for the sake of peace. Vlad talks to the Sultan, who is his old friend, and offers himself in their place. The Sultan wants the 10,000 boys.
No, 1,000.
Originally it was 10,000, wasn't it?
No, it was 1,000.
You sure?
Pretty sure.
All right, well, we'll change that. The Sultan wants 1,000 boys, as well as Vlad's own son. And that's not going to work, because you can see that he really kind of spoils the son, and the son's a little bit soft, maybe.
But that's not going to fly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, some men come from the boy. It's like this long, almost like a prisoner exchange, and it doesn't work out. Vlad kills everyone. Now he's in trouble with the boss, and the advisor says, "War will come. You can't protect us." Vlad can't fight them all alone. Where can he get the power he needs?
Yeah, he needs a special something.
Yeah, they have no real army, just a couple of dozen strong guys.
Some, yeah, it's a small army.
Small
Yeah.
Well, the Sultan has, maybe that's where the 10,000 came from.
1,000, yeah. I mean, the Sultan's been collecting soldiers from all these regions that he is in control of.
Yeah.
Transylvania's
he's got a
one of
big
them.
army, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Vlad goes back to the cave where the vampire lives. Vlad wants to become a vampire to save his people. "Men do not fear swords. They fear monsters," he explains, which is a really good line for a trailer.
Yeah, it is.
He makes Vlad drink from him, and he'll get all the vampire's power. If Vlad can resist drinking blood for 3 days, he'll revert back to human. Otherwise, Vlad will take the vampire's place forever. Vlad insists he's up to the challenge, so he drinks. When he awakes, he's very strong and can heal very quickly. He's got super hearing. He can turn into a swarm of bats and fly.
He's also very, very thirsty.
Yeah, he is.
The urge for blood is strong.
Vlad returns home to find his castle under siege by the Sultan's men already. Vlad gives a little speech, and then it's time to kill some Turks. He takes on their army alone. Before long, Vlad is standing in hundreds of bodies. He won all by himself. Negotiations failed, he says.
Yeah, that's quite a scene, too.
Yeah,
that action scene.
Little pile there.
Where he takes them on, and his followers, his friends' followers, his closest ones come running in. What? I guess we missed the fight.
We came to help, but okay.
Okay. Good job.
Well, the Sultan is not pleased. He finds his army impaled on spears. Oh, that's why they call him
back
that.
at again.
Yeah.
Well, it was alluded that that's what he did.
He had done it
first time
before,
around.
yeah. This is kind of his trademark move. After they're dead, he impales them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he vows to send 100,000 men next time. Vlad says he will win this war in 3 days. He makes love to his wife, and she notices all his scars are gone. We see earlier he gets cleaned up, and he is just covered in scars from all his previous battles when he was younger, and now he's not.
He's pristine and smooth.
He wants to bite her, but stops himself. A Renfield wannabe brings him a cup of blood, and he struggles to resist its call. In the morning, he finds out that sunlight burns him. "In 2 days, I'll be restored. I just need to resist." Well, then the Sultan attacks, and there's a battle in the woods. Vlad's second in command, Dimitru, defends Vlad's family but dies in the battle. The next morning, the Sultan tells his men to fight blindfolded so they can know no fear.
I can't imagine that working very well, though.
Why would it?
Yeah.
I've been fighting 10 minutes and this tree just won't die. Oops, fell down that cliff. Okay. Yeah, that's just dumb. They don't have the force or anything. Meanwhile, Vlad hangs out in the shadows, avoiding the sunlight. There's a lot of shadows in this woods. The monk sees this and exposes Vlad to his men, who run away in terror. He's a vampire!
Ah, run away, run away.
The men set his house on fire and turn against him. And when he comes out, he questions their loyalty and gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
They just set his house on fire knowing he was inside, and he questions their loyalty.
No kidding. Yeah.
These are not great followers. What have you done for us lately? Well, he goes into the church. What?
Which he can do.
Which he can do. And prays to endure for one more day of the test. The Sultan's main army arrives. Yeah, the Sultan must be based pretty close by to have 3 different attacks. Mm-hmm. 3 different armies in 3 days.
He gets them there awful close. Yeah, awful quick. Yeah. That's one of those things you best not. Because they do that in these movies.
Yeah.
They move armies in a very short amount of time. And in real life, it wasn't that fast.
It's kind of vague where this is. But you know where Turkey is. That's where the Turks are.
Yeah.
And he's in some vaguely Romanian, Transylvanian kind of place, which isn't that close. Not a day's march.
Yeah, getting that many men together along with the support staff and all the equipment and everything. Yeah.
Well, Vlad calls on about 1 billion bats to swarm the castle and kill the soldiers.
More coolness.
Nothing like air support. Vlad sees the Sultan in the middle of the army and dives after him, but it turns out to be a decoy. The real Sultan is inside the castle preparing to kill Vlad's family as the sun rises. Sultan's no dummy. Vlad arrives too late to save his wife. She tells him to drink her blood to save their son. And he does it. And simultaneously, the old vampire goes out into the sunlight. His time is over and his curse is lifted. We assume he goes outside and dies. Vlad then turns several of his own loyal men into vampires too. Army of Darkness kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then he opens his secret room and puts on his dragon armor from the old days. And he's pointed to the locked door several times, alluded to like the secret weapon inside.
But it's just armor.
It's cool looking armor, but
Yeah.
it's just armor. And this is handled like some kind of big reveal, but it's just armor. And I don't know, was Vlad the Impaler, is he ever painted with fancy armor or something? Like this was part of the legend or something?
I don't think in real life, no.
I know in the Gary Oldman movie he wore some pretty nice looking armor, but that was just the
in
movie.
other adaptations, yeah.
Yeah. Shouldn't the sun have risen by now? The Sultan's man asks. Vlad is coming for the Sultan, and he's not alone. There's another battle. Soon it's just Vlad versus the Sultan, 1-on-1. The Sultan uses Vlad's aversion to silver against him with all kinds of coins, which kind of shows off just how rich the Sultan is and how smart he is.
Yeah.
But Vlad's not a quitter. Vlad ends up impaling or staking the Sultan as he explains that his name is no longer Vlad. It's now Dracula, son of the devil. And Dracula leaves with his son. All right. Don't know where that name came from. Where did that name come from?
It means the son of the devil.
All right. Well, his own men now want to eat Dracula's son because he's the only human left alive to eat. Vlad kills one of the new vampires, but there's too many of them for him to stop them all. He ends up handing over his son to the priest, who will now take care of him. Vlad gives his son a tearful goodbye, and then the son comes out and kills everyone. Later, we see the Renfield dude cutting his hand and pouring blood into Dracula's mouth. I guess there's a charred body still laying there. And then we fast forward to modern times, and we see Dracula in a modern city, obviously still alive. He meets a girl named Mina, who looks just like his dead wife. We also see the master vampire watching all of this, who clearly isn't as dead as we were led to believe. And of course, there were going to be sequels that involved that master vampire and Mina, of course.
Yeah, but that
never happened.
Yeah.
All right, well, I love that they finally gave Dracula a backstory beyond just a name. In the Gary Oldman one, Bram Stoker's Dracula, we did get a little bit of Dracula's backstory there, but it was like
Not
maybe
much.
5 minutes of voiceover.
Yeah, not like this.
Yeah, this is much better. It looks good, and it's a reasonable origin story. He was a great leader with a tragic case of hubris. We're told he's a cursed monster, but we never see him do anything explicitly evil. He defends his people against the enemy and gets revenge when that doesn't work out as expected. I don't know where Universal planned to go with their dark universe idea, but clearly Dracula wasn't going to be a complete villain. Actually, with him walking around in modern times, I kind of got the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen kind of vibes from it.
Yeah, kind of.
And they just put together a super team.
Yeah, they could have.
Well, it's got a lot of action, and the story never slows down. The battles clearly look influenced by the Lord of the Rings films, and Vlad's motivations all make sense, even if we do know he's making all the wrong decisions. The bit at the end hinted at the sequels that never came. But should have. I would have liked to have seen those sequels.
Yeah, I would have too.
All right, any final words about any of these?
No, not really.
All right, well, they're good.
Yeah.
As you scroll through your Luke Evans pictures on IMDb. I see that.
All the stuff he's done. Yeah.
Has he done a lot?
Oh yeah, he has. His filmography is 44 credits.
All right.
Not a ton of stuff yet.
I don't think I remember him being in anything before the Hobbit movies. I'm sure he must have been.
Yes,
He wouldn't just got that out of the blue.
Yeah. Well, his first thing was in 2003, a short film, Taboo.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that is our show. Stop in at horrorguys.com, read the reviews, leave us a comment. Check us out at Horror Bulletin on Twitter or on Facebook, Horror Guys Podcast. Or even better, if you got a comment, question, or want to debate our movie opinions, email us, horrorguysmail@gmail.com. And get ready for next week.
What's next week?
More movies.
More Dark Universe.
Uh-huh.
The Mummy from 2017.
Yeah, the mummy that will not be named.
Which is also Mummy Impossible, because it's
Tom Cruise
in
yes.
another action movie.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about that one, I imagine, because we haven't really discussed it much. And then we're going to follow that up with The Witch from 2015. Whenever you get on any kind of forum or group and they say, what's the scariest movie of the last decade?
People say
The Witch is way up there on the list. And maybe there's a reason for that. One of the best films of 2020, you ask, is a lot of people will mention His House. Yeah, some African are they African? From Africa or somewhere else?
Yes, they're African.
Yeah, African immigrants and the troubles they run into in America. Or Britain. They go to Britain. They don't come to America.
Right.
Yeah. And the most important movie of our times.
Uncle Peckerhead.
Yeah, Uncle Peckerhead.
You heard that right. Yeah.
Which is surprisingly better than you might think. All right, and that's our show for this week. We'll see you next time. I'm Brian.
I'm Kevin.
See you.
See ya.